After the defeat of the August Putsch, the political system in the USSR underwent irreversible changes.
Внутренне, честно говорю, за эту нерешительность, за эту осторожность, за эти была как-то антипатия.
The center of political power had shifted sharply from the former Soviet center in favor of the Russian leadership. Given the fact that almost the entire leadership of the Allied authorities took part in the putsch, it became impossible to simply restore the status quo in Moscow after its failure.
Отстранен от власти законно избранный президент страны. Какими бы причинами не оправдывалось это отстранение, мы имеем дело с правым, реакционным, антиконституционным переворотом.
The Union authorities could no longer manage the situation on the territory of Russia proper, including collecting taxes and distributing resources, and without this, their influence on the rest of the Soviet republics was minimal. Of course, many national republics aspired to sovereignty, to the ability to independently determine their own fate. They had the right to do so. It was fixed in the Constitution, in the clause on the right to self-determination, up to the secession from the USSR. For example, on August 20th and 21st, 1991, almost at the same time as the unsuccessful coup, 3 Baltic republics, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, declared their independence. But it was difficult to exercise this right, and many conditions had to be met. One of them was the desire of the Russian elite to abandon the USSR and exercise their right to secede from the state. You can imagine what a difficult situation Kazakhstan and its president Nursultan Nazarbayev were in this extremely difficult situation. The August coup put an end to the history of the Novo-Ogaryevsky process. Russian President Boris Yeltsin no longer agreed with this. You can recall how difficult the situation was throughout the USSR in the fall of 1991. Conflicts were everywhere. For example, on August 30th, Azerbaijan declared its independence. On September 2nd, the Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh proclaimed a republic. As a result, the warring parties were heading for a full-scale war. In this situation, an attempt was made to resolve the conflict, to find grounds for compromise. It is not surprising that this attempt was made by the most authoritative politicians on the territory of the USSR at that time. They were Nursultan Nazarbayev and Boris Yeltsin. Together, they formed a joint Russian-Kazakh peacekeeping mission. There were other conflict situations on the territory of the USSR. On September 25, 1991, during the development of the conflict between Moldova and Transnistria, an armed conflict occurred in the city of Dubasari. Many publicists and politicians believed that Kazakhstan had too many problems, and they were undoubtedly surprised by the fact that, against the background of many conflicts throughout the USSR, Kazakhstan was distinguished by its stability in the most difficult years of 1990 and 1991. On December 1st, 1991, the first national presidential election was held. N.A. Nazarbayev, with 98% of the vote, was elected the first president of an independent state.
Торжественно клянусь верно служить народу нашей многонациональной республики, строго следовать Конституции Республики Казахстан, гарантировать права и свободы граждан, добросовестно выполнять возложенные на меня высокие обязанности президента Республики Казахстан.
On December 8, 1991, the leaders of Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine met in Białowieża Forest. After a brief discussion, they made a decision that effectively ended the history of the USSR. Naturally, the Białowieża agreements of the three Slavic republics, although they put an end to the existence of the USSR, did not solve many questions about how to ensure this difficult process and, most importantly, how the new independent states should interact. On December 13th, at the initiative of the President of Kazakhstan, the leaders of those republics that were not invited to the Białowieża Forest gathered in Ashgabat. Here they worked out a coordinated position on the events that had taken place. On December 16, 1991, Kazakhstan declared independence. This was the most important event in its significance, and it began a new era. This was a turning point for the new history of independent Kazakhstan, where, led by a newly ambitious president, the country embarked on an independent and democratic path of development. Immediately after the adoption of the Constitution of Independent Kazakhstan, this event was recognized by a number of states, such as Turkey, the United States, and Russia. And by the end of this significant year, our independence had been recognized by many other countries. Kazakhstan was accepted as a full-fledged member of the global community. The first president of the young country, Nazarbayev, was immediately able to establish mutually beneficial economic relations with the states of the near and far abroad and attracted international investors to create a solid economic foundation. In another very important event, the final point in the history of the USSR and the organizational design of its collapse was set in Alma-Ata on December 21, 1991. Here, the Almaty Declaration was adopted, and 8 states immediately joined the CIS. The choice of the venue for the final meeting of the 3 presidents of Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine, and all the other presidents and leaders of the former Soviet republics, was clearly not accidental. This was a reflection of the role that Nursultan Nazarbayev played in political processes at that time. There are different ways to achieve independence. There are always external and internal factors that affect this difficult process. Such processes are difficult because the situation in 1990 and 1991 was extremely challenging, and the scales of fate could have swung in any direction. The president understood what was at stake, but could a newly independent country act rashly in this difficult period for everyone? The future of the country, which many saw as bleak in the face of the disintegrating empire, depended on each action. Nursultan Nazarbayev led a political chess game in which there was not and could not be a particularly strong position, but he was able to play like a real grandmaster. He ensured the unity of governance in Kazakhstan and secured harmony in society and controllability of political processes. The fact that everything went so smoothly is an obvious merit of the very subtle and effective policy of Nursultan Nazarbayev.